By the way, did you all get this in your newspaper? This explains this is the exact language of all the initiatives. It took me 8 hours to get through it. Took Roger less. All right. I'm going to, first of all, I want to handle the low-hanging fruit. You will have on the ballot judicial retention. 3 judges are running for retention at the appellate court level. The way it works is simply this. When there's a vacancy on a judgeship covered by the Missouri Plan, a commission meets, and half the commission is our citizens appointed by the governor, and half of it is our lawyers appointed by the Missouri Bar Association. And so overseen by the Supreme Court Justice. They nominate 3, the governor chooses 1, and that person becomes the new judge. Voters are not involved until it comes time to say, can we keep her job? So at the end of 1 year, and then at the end of each term, they must go on the ballot on a yes or no vote. So if you vote no on all 3 of those people, you're going to create a vacancy, and the process will begin all over again. Any questions on that? Yeah.
That's for appellate court judges and judges in the metropolitan areas. Like I'm running for office in the rural areas, it's the regular election, but
That's right.
what Dave's talking about on that is appellate court judges.
These are all appeals judges except for Kansas City and St. Louis. They put them in because of Intergas and plus machine corruption mainly.
It costs a lot of money to run for office in the statewide or in the cities.
All right, I'm going to not talk much about Amendment 4, and that's the bingo amendment. It's been my understanding that bingo's been a problem in Missouri for years and years and years, and we had constitutional amendments that would limit bingo, and it's kind of like pool, you know. But anyhow, because it got into the Constitution, we have to fix it every once in a while. It's a constitutional amendment that allows it to be fixed. And what we're fixing this time, and of course you don't have to fix it if you're against bingo, you can probably vote no on this, but what we're fixing is it removes language limiting advertising for bingo, and it also it reduces the amount of time that organizers of bingo have before they can participate in the management of the bingo game. Okay? So are there any questions about Amendment 4? All right. No opposition to bingo. Okay. Now we get into the weighty things. And I'm going to start that's all right. I've got them upside down, is what I've got. I'm going to start with Proposition B, all right, which is minimum wage. Okay, you are quite correct, young man. Government employees are not covered by this. They're specifically excluded from it. Okay, let me give you a little bit of a history behind this. In 2015, St. Louis increased their minimum wage to $18. And in 2017, Kansas City voters, by a 70% margin, increased the minimum wage to $15 by 2022. And later on in 2017, the state legislature came in and said that municipalities could not raise the minimum wage past what the state is. So we have a proposition that was put on the Proposition B, and here's what it'll do. It'll raise the minimum wage over over a series of 4 years, okay? And it'll raise it by 85 cents a year until it reaches $12 an hour, okay? In 2023, it reaches $12 an hour. Government employees are exempt. Government, they are not guaranteed the minimum wage. Also, non-compliant employers can be held accountable for back wages and equal to and be responsible for twice the unpaid wages. I've got other stuff here. Have any questions on the minimum wage? Any questions on the minimum wage?
How much is it gonna help people when they lose their job because those people can't afford to pay the minimum wage?
Well, when is it full funding? Full funded in 2023? You know what the yearly annual wage will be? Under 25,000. Now, I don't know about you, but 25,000, most people can't make it on 25,000 anyhow. Admittedly, you know that, I don't know. That's just fact.
Right.
Okay, so I do know that small businesses now hire a lot at lower wages. Okay, anybody else want to respond to this? It's not my...
There's a chance that inflation will eliminate that in terms of real increase anyway. It's just not large enough to keep up with inflation.
Yeah.
My concern is somewhere it's written, and I've looked, I haven't been able to find it, it says, if you have a minimum wage job, do not look for another job because that's where you're stuck for the rest of your life. We can't do this and have people get entry-level jobs, kids in high school and stuff, to learn a work ethic and to go to work and make this work. I'm not running, so I'll quit running.
Well, I mean, old people like me remember when we worked for a dime a day,
And we're darn glad to get it.
Well, I spent it as fast as I earned it. But anyhow, point being is that, this is, cost of living. I mean, you used to buy gas for 14 cents a gallon. To see how old I am. That's good gas war.
When I see the ads that this guy's 35 and got 4 kids and he's working for minimum wage, he shouldn't be.
But anyway, that's, yeah.
I just wanted to point out that, you have a lot of students here that are in college that are working minimum wage jobs. Wage jobs are expected, minimum expectations. But by not giving them a livable wage and forcing them to take additional student loans, you're setting them up for failure in the long term. They can't default on student loans. So I know it's a horrible thing, but at the same time, these people need to be able to get through college without digging themselves in a hole.
I know a lot of people went to college without need that.
Well, anyway, this will help college students somewhat, I suppose.
Yeah, especially
As Mr. Colton pointed out, the inflation will probably eat it up. Hopefully not, but probably will. Anyway, any other commentary on minimum wage? Okay. Gas tax. Proposition D will raise the gas tax by 2.5 cents each year for 4 years. And there's a couple of other little things in this proposition too that are funny. If you win any Olympic medals, they can't be taxed. Special Olympics, Paralympics, whatever, they can't be taxed. And the other one is more substantive. It creates an emergency freight reduction bottleneck fund. And it'll be funded, I think, around $50 million. But the point being is that fund's created by Proposition D, and I doubt that it'll handle traffic in Kawasaki that's out. It's more for bottlenecks in Kansas City and St. Louis. Okay, now.
Now, here's a question. Where does that still leave us nationally, though? Because don't we rank on gas taxes like 48th or something like that in the nation?
49.
49?
Does that even bump us up any over that period of time to where we don't have that honorable distinction?
I'm looking here, I think it's 49th, yeah. The lowest gas tax in the United States, oh, Alabama and Mississippi are below us. All right? So y'all don't like the gas tax here, move to Alabama and Mississippi.
New York.
That's now. I mean, but the highest one, and I can attest to this because, no, the highest one's 58.7% in Pennsylvania. 58%.
They got a lot of toll roads too.
Well, they've got nice toll roads. Well, they used to.
But don't they have, out in Virginia, don't they have all the roads paved?
We don't have all the roads paved here? I don't know. I do know, I'll tell you a story about this because I moved from Illinois a long, long time ago. Before a lot of you were born. And what I noticed when I moved from Illinois here is that the roads are paved here, when there, and they aren't here. You know, and they have permanent sewers there, and they don't here. You know, or they didn't when I moved here. So the point being, then I looked at my property tax, and it's a whole heck of a lot lower here than it was in Illinois. So, you know, you get what you pay for. But gas tax, you know, is, well, here I'm a little confused. Let me go back here because this is a difficult thing to understand somewhat. I was a little confused because I read Proposition D 4 times. And all the minute language and all the stuff it was replacing and all that stuff, and I couldn't find where that money was in there for state and local. State and local, $123 million to local governments. Couldn't find it. I did find specific reference to the state police in it. Okay, so I got to thinking about this. Well, you know, in 1962, when the gas tax was required to fund state and local highways, all right, in 1962. In 2004, a citizen-initiated lockbox amendment said that the fuel tax revenue can only be used for state and local roads. That was an amendment in 2004. I don't see any place in this amendment where state police is there. So, but if we pass this, it fixes that. You know, it allows us to give money to the state police. Okay? Now, it might be someplace that I didn't find, but that 2004 initiative is the one that locked it in into local roads. All right? So, if we increase it, you know, if we increase it, the revenue will flow up, and local governments will get more money. I don't know why they specifically put it in the proposition, though. It's not in the proposition itself. It's in the language that introduces it. It says 123 million annually to state and local. I can't find that in there, but that might be what happens when we pass the tax. Okay, I have no doubt that there'll be money, increased money for state and local, I mean for county and municipal governments. I have no doubt about it. The county will get some, city will get some, but it seems kind of strange to me that they only mentioned the state and local when they didn't mention the state at all. I know a lot of people are upset because they think it's all going to the state patrol. You know, and you read it, you read the fine print, and that's the only thing it mentions in there.
The
Now,
roads are just gonna get about a third of it.
yeah, well, that's probably right. I want to back up on something else that was talked about earlier. It specifically states in this proposition that it's subject to appropriations by the state legislature. So the state will have to appropriate this money. Now, I cannot use it outside the parameters of of the gas tax, limitations. It has to use, if this passes, it'll allow it to use it for state police, in my reading of things, okay? So the answer to that original question that came about is that no, it's, it still has to be appropriated. But if they're going to use gas tax money at all, it has to be used for has to be used for designated uses, state and local roads, and if this passes, state police.
And Olympic medals.
Olympic medals are just not taxed. If you win an Olympic medal, they're not going to tax it. Don't know why that got in there.
Does anybody have any figures on what the revenue reduction would be when we're not lower anymore than all the neighboring states and we've got 2 or 3 convenience stores on the state line everywhere you cross out of the state of Missouri? And people drive over here and spend money because we are lower priced.
I did not find it in my research. Does anybody know the answer to that question?
Because it's going to be considerable.
So people do, I don't, what is the gas tax in Kansas,
About 4 cents higher than ours.
Okay.
And I know people that will drive a long ways to save 4 cents. They'll spend 6 to do it. Because they save money.
What's the gas tax in Iowa?
40 cents a gallon, it's 36 in Missouri, 46 in Nebraska, and 43 in Kansas.
That's not much. All right. And it's
Well,
going,
it's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
There's a reason those stores are there.
Okay.
They're not there just because, man, this state line is so gorgeous. I'm going to build a store right here next to the highway.
Cigarette
Usually not.
taxes,
Usually not.
alcohol taxes.
And gasoline, all. So we need to raise them all so we can do away with that revenue decline.
Just telling you what it says.
I'm just making a point.
I know. Vote for or against it, it's just,
I've made my mind up.
well, most of us have, right? Okay, any other questions or comments on the gas tax? All right. Moving through the easy ones. Amendment 1. This is, before I started this, I said, well, we've got three proposals on marijuana and one proposal that handles 2 things, all right? And indeed, that's against the Constitution, have 2 things, but in Ritter versus Ashcroft, Judge Daniel Green in Cole County, that's where they file all of these things in Cole County, ruled that indeed violated that provision of the Missouri Constitution. Okay, so it was off the ballot. Well then, and that was on September 14th. On September 20th, that's fast work for government. On September 20th, the Court of Appeals overturned Judge Green and reinstated it. And on September 24th, the Missouri State Supreme Court rejected the appeal. So this is going to be legal. All right, the State Supreme Court has already ruled on it. All right? Okay, so that's 2 parts. All right? Which you want to handle first? You want to handle the limitations, or you want to handle the reapportionment? Oh, well, I'll just start rather than that. Okay. Let's start with redistricting. Currently, when you redistrict, after each census, there are bizarre rules in Missouri. Every contested election, state representative, congressional district, and state senate, has a congressional district party committee. All right, 2 of them, Democrats and Republicans, every single one. All right, so the way it's done now is for the Senate redistricting, the state party each nominates 10 for this redistricting commission, and the governor chooses 5. As for the state senate, for the state representative, nominate two, and the governor chooses one of those two. Now, got to understand that there's one Republican and one Democrat on these. All right, you understand that? So it's not all Republicans, it's not all Democrats. So you have a two-party commission. All right, and they were given the task of redistricting after each census. All right, and if they could not agree on a map, it ended up with the state Supreme Court justice appointing a panel of judges that would set the districting. That's the way it is now. This amendment has nothing to do with congressional districts. Okay? Only with state senate districts and state representative districts. The key change in this is that now it's going to be done by a nonpartisan state demographer. And the way this process will work is that if you want to be that demographer, you want to apply for this job, and I couldn't find how much they're going to pay you. But if you want to apply for this job, you have to send, first of all, the state auditor will set up requirements for the demographer. So the state auditor's office would set that up. Then with those requirements, they will call for people to apply, and so they'll apply. All right, so you have all these people applying to be the state demographer. What happens then is that the demographer will put forth, I think it's three, I have to look at these, three candidates. The state auditor represents three candidates, and these are presented to the majority and minority leaders of both houses. Okay? And they have to agree on one. If they can't agree, this is interesting, each one of them, they can reduce the pool of total applicants by 1/3. All right? And then you know what happens? The auditor does a random selection of one. All right? All right, so you got the state demographer. Okay, he or she has a 5-year term. All right? And they're prohibited from running for office for 5 years. So they can't create the map and then run for office. Okay. Criteria for the maps. Okay, there should be equal number of people in each district. No intentional denial of racial or language minorities. Okay. Partisan fairness, which reflects the partisan distribution in the last statewide election. So my understanding of this, if 70% of Missouri voters voted Republican in the last general election, that's for the United States Senate, governor, or president, then 70% of the legislative districts ought to be Republican. That's my understanding of this. So it's reflective of, it reflects the partisan distribution of the last statewide election, is what it says. All right. They must meet in several places. In other words, you can't just have one place where the districts hook up. They should coincide with political subdivisions when possible, so they don't you don't have long gerrymandered types of things. They also state in there that as near as possible, the district should be close to a square or a rectangle or a trapezoid. All right? Computers are wonderful. A nonpartisan guy can do this, probably. All right? Now, let me back up for a minute and tell you a personal story, because I worked with a guy at the University of Illinois when computers were coming out back in the dark ages. And he said, if indeed they let me set the legislative maps in the state of Illinois, I can guarantee a Republican election every time. And I think he probably got hired to do just that. But anyhow, point being is that, you know, there are some limitations on how this can work, okay? Now, what happens if it doesn't? Well, it goes to courts. All right. Now, what happens when it's passed? And then we go back to much like we had before. Within 6 months, the demographer, after the census, the demographer will publish the proposed map. The Senate and the House will hold. The Senate and House will hold hearings, and or the commissioners will hold hearings, and the commissions are the same. All right. If the commissioners vote 70%, it becomes the map. Okay. Now they can make moderate changes in. All right. But they only moderate changes. Then if 70% of them vote for the map, it goes to the commission sends it, files it with the Secretary of State. If commissioners fail to agree, it's the same thing as now. All right? A court-appointed 6-member commission will approve a plan. All right? Any questions on this? No? Okay. Did I get it all right? Think? Isn't that right? You guys, you know. Affects you. Okay. Now, second part. I might say that in 2016, we passed an amendment to the Missouri Constitution that put limits on candidates and put limits on contributions to candidates, put limits on unions and organizations contributing to candidates, and limited foreign and out-of-state contributions. Well, on May 5th, 2017, Judge Ortry Smith, U.S. District Court of Western Missouri, banned all contribution bans, ruled them unconstitutional based upon Citizens United versus FEC, the United States Supreme Court case in 2010. All right? So that's a preface. We've already voted on this once, and it passed. All right? Okay, now what they've done, rather than limiting contributions, they limit the candidates on what they can accept. I don't know whether this is going to pass muster or not. I don't know whether to go to that district court and you'll throw it out, but you see the subtle difference? It limits what Alan can accept. It does not limit, you know, what monies that other people can contribute. So just what you can accept. All right. And then they got the other additions. You will not be able to accept, you and your employees will not be able to accept gifts over the value of $5. Won't even buy you a beer. All right. Past legislators are prevented from lobbying for 2 years. Okay. No political fundraising on state property. I don't know how they're going to regulate that. But anyhow, no state funded. Well,
Can't do it now.
well, I know, but never mind. I said I don't know how they're going to regulate that. All legislative records and proceedings will be subject to the Missouri Sunshine Law, and then specifically it comes to that in here. Okay. It's my opinion that this will pass because we passed it before. All right. It's also my opinion that that judge over there in the Western District will probably throw it out because there's only a subtle difference. But maybe I'm wrong. Okay. Just my opinion. Any questions on that part of it? Anyone? Yes.
I want to know from any of the representatives, do you feel that if this is passed and is not overturned, how will it affect you?
We'll live with it, I mean, we'll do whatever. The ethics stuff is fine, I mean, many folks have been trying to do that for a while. You know, I have a problem, I don't necessarily read the redistricting part of it.
Well, so, yes, here, I read the fine print.
Yeah, and I do,
Yeah.
and so, I think they're two separate issues as well, and multiple issues on the ballot, so
That's not the one we changed.
probably not, maybe not.
I thought there might be a problem too, and I said, well, but I've checked it out, and once the state Supreme Court refused to hear the case out of the appellate court, this language will be deemed constitutional. All right, any other questions or comments on this? Gee, I'm doing a good job, because I don't see very many people looking confused. All right? All right.
Sorry, can I have clarification on the redistricting map? So, let's say this passes, right? We have to have 50-50 for Republican, Democrat.
No, it doesn't say that.
No?
No, it simply says, what it
I've
says,
seen a few things, that's why I wanted to clarify.
it says it should reflect the partisan distribution from the last statewide election.
Okay.
Okay?
I have to read it.
What's that?
So I have to read that again,
Yeah.
because I know it was more 50/50.
Nope.
I'll have to look at it.
Never was.
So why bother, because it doesn't change anything? Really?
Oh, yeah. it does.
Actually, it does. You know, when you start talking about, I'll use Marceline as an example. It's a town that sits on 3 different state house seats. And a town like that, quadrilateral, if you will, it would be, they'd probably be able to encompass the entire town instead of splitting the town into 3 pieces to guarantee a specific win. Because what gerrymandering does is it looks at the formula and it says, okay, if we move these people into this district, we can change the outcome of this district. And that's what we need to fight against. We need to have our districts reflect, make them competitive so that people have to campaign. And then the voters are picking their leaders and not the leaders picking their voters.
Let me back up. This might be the confusion, and I think you addressed it. The new district should reflect the partisan split in the last election. So, you know, it might be closer to, you know, might even favor the party that won the last election if it's drawn that
Yes.
way. You know, so it's anyhow. We'll see.
That everybody wants to remember that both parties win elections too.
Yeah.
I'll just jump in here real quick, that, you know, as far as like the campaign finance and the ethics part of the bill, I'm like Senator Hagan, you know, that's fine, it's not really, it won't affect me personally. I don't know of any legislators, Democrats or Republicans, that would really, that part would affect them much personally. The only thing that really concerns me about this measure is the potential, it's not a sure thing that this would happen, but the potential of us losing our rural voice. And that's the biggest concern that I have. Personally, I don't like how we have it where we redistrict. I'm not a big advocate for how Missouri redistricts. I was talking to a legislator from another state just recently. They have a much simpler process, a very fair and even way that the computer program does this, and it's a good way to do it. I don't like gerrymandering. I'm not in favor of trying to position a legislative district so it's going to be in favor of me as a Republican or for someone else as a Democrat. I'm not in favor of any of that. But that's my only holdup on this, is the potential of us losing our rural voice by making it fair and even with the pertaining to that language. Is it 50-50? Is it 70-30? Is it, you know, what exactly is that going to be skewed?
Last election.
And so what is that going to look like? In order for us in the rural, a lot of the rural areas, to be able to make that happen, it's a very large possibility that we might have to dip down into the rural areas, in the urban
It
areas.
doesn't,
And
Terry,
we
it
would
doesn't
lose-
say that at all. It doesn't say that at all. And I
But
understand what you're saying.
I'm not as concerned, I'm really honestly, I've been in the legislature for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a seasoned veteran by any means, but in those 4 years, I can tell you that what always glistens is not always gold. And that sometimes that what is in these pieces of legislature are things hidden in there that can misconstrue what the end result will actually be.
I found
And so-
no
But I think-
hidden bombs, and
I
I'm
think-
sorry, I read the whole thing.
I think it's
It's none
specific,
there.
the specific shape being stated,
That's right.
that it has to resemble a square, rectangle, or trapezoid. I think that's gonna prevent exactly what you're saying. What it's going to do is it's going to force Democrats in your area to say, hey, you know, it's competitive now, I'll get into this. And it's okay, because guess what? He's gonna love the area the same way you do. And your area is not gonna lose a voice. We cannot assume that one party or the other can represent the rural area better than the other.
Well, I agree 100%.
I got that.
Misunderstanding. I think maybe in terms of redistricting, like if we were to redistrict, and if we had to dip down into Buchanan County, you know, the way they view things or see things, they are a city, you know, and so they view things through the lens of how you would operate and function within a city.
You're looking at the numbers.
Which is
So-
different than how,
and-
what we look at in a, like our rural
So it might be,
supervisor.
it might make it longer instead of,
Right, right.
Tall.
Right, and so.
and that would preserve your voice.
Well, and I don't think it has anything to do with Republican or Democrat. I think it has to do with not losing the voice of the rural communities.
I don't think they're
Not
gonna-
get lost with.
Actually, I think they're gonna get a whole lot more say now.
My concern is think. That's my concern. Whenever I was elected 4 years ago, people told me, and I told you, that I was going to take a strong stand for rural Northwest Missouri. And anything that had the potential of potentially losing our voice, it could be a bad thing for us, I'm going to be adamantly against, whatever that might look like. So the only part of this measure that I'm concerned about is the redistricting. And so I think there's so many questions that are unanswered.
It's got limitations that are specific, and it's not gonna be unlike what the legislator did with the computers. This will be done by a computer, it'll be computerized. The demographer will be, I would bet that if I'm writing criteria for the demographer, computer literacy and the ability to use computer data and GIS systems, this sort of thing's vital. All right. Now, that all depends on what the auditor comes up with, but
I think it's gonna take the voter probability algorithm out of the equation.
that's right.
I think that's gone. So the voter probability algorithm is gone, so it eliminates the possibility of that gerrymander to specifically preserve a seat, or to add a seat, or remove a seat, whatever the case may be. But I understand your concern, I truly do.
I mean, it's less political, but it's still political, because
Yeah, it's always.
if the politicians don't agree with it, it goes back to the judges again. All right? So some ways it's the same, you know? So
It's a tough one.
yeah.
We know who put this on the ballot. It doesn't indicate whether the legislature did.
No, the legislature did not put this on, most definitely did not.
It was a voter initiative.
It's a voter initiative. Yeah, it's a voter initiative. Legislature would not have put this on.
I don't
No
know,
way.
it doesn't say. On the others, it says by.
Well, it
petition or
doesn't
by-
say there, but it does here. It's even on the ballot. Okay. Where are we at on this now? Amendment 1, all right. Petition proposed by initiative petition, not on the ballot.
Okay. It does not say that on the stuff we get.
Well,
That's okay, I just,
all right. Any other questions on this? Okay. I'll move on to the mess.
Wait, while we're in between, I want to remind everyone, you guys can ask the candidates what their position is. The purpose of this forum is not for us to tell you how to vote. So please take this to be educated. The chamber is not backing an NCCA. We're not telling you a way to vote. We're just supplying you with educational information. The candidates are more than welcome to tell you where they land on these issues, but as an organization, we don't back any of these groups. Thanks. Proceed.
Statewide you do, but that's neither here nor there.
Not our local chamber.
I know that's true. That's true. Okay, as much as I respect my good friend Judge Prokes, I'm going to have to point out something that he said that was not correct.
Overruled.
In 2014, the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment to the Omnibus Spending Bill prohibits federal enforcement of marijuana laws in states approving marijuana.
I stand corrected.
And it was renewed in 2017 by the Republican Congress. So it's been renewed. So we pass this, it goes in. All right? Unless, but you are quite correct, we could have a new administrator, the president and the attorney general both want that removed. I'm telling you that. I know that to be a fact. Okay? All right. I'm going to shorten your decision for most of them. All right? If you are against medical marijuana, vote no on all three.
We're not here to tell you how to vote.
No, I said if.
If you're against.
I said if. If you are concerned about, if you're in favor, you've got three choices. Okay? You can back a constitutional amendment which cannot be changed by the state legislature because it's an amendment to the Constitution. All right? And that's Amendment 2. If you are, and Amendment 2 will put administration of this, of medical marijuana under the State Department of Health Services and Health and Senior Services, okay? So it'll be governed by state bureaucracy. If you're against state bureaucracy and want to pass and want this single person, his name is Brad Bradshaw, and he has carefully, he funded the initiative drive. He took the backers of Amendment 2 to court in the same Coles County court, you know, and he was to complain about how this petition had signatures on it that were illegally and unconstitutionally collected, and he was slapped down at the circuit court level. All right, and he was the only guy. He was the only guy pushing for this. He's from Springfield, Missouri. He is a lawyer. He's a doctor. And from my reading of proposition of Amendment 3, he's probably also got a PhD in science of some type. All right. And so if you don't want government involved in the administration of marijuana laws in the state of Missouri, vote for 3. Because the state will have minimal. Yeah.
A constitutional amendment to be changed needs to be put forward, the change needs to be put forward by the legislation, or legislators, and then voted in a popular vote by the Missouri voters.
That's right.
So if he's a crook, then the good senator and the good representative will have to put forward that to the Missouri voters, and then it will have to be
That's what I meant.
passed.
Yeah, that's right.
The Constitution.
Now, on the other hand, if you're in favor of this, and you want the state legislature to be able to change it, all right, and to alter it, vote for C. Okay? Now, that's an oversimplification, but some of you, you know, you need some guidance on these 3 things. I will tell you this. It's already been stated, if both amendments pass, the amendment receiving the greatest number of votes is put in. All right? Now, question is, what happens if, Proposition C passes and it gets more votes than the others? The Attorney General, I think it's the Attorney General's office, says that'll be determined by the courts. My opinion, and I did consult with the writer of the Missouri, one of the two writers of the Missouri Politics book in Missouri Today, is that amendments overrule all laws. So the amendment will stand. So what I'm saying is if one of the amendments passes and Proposition C passed, the amendment will take effect. All right? Okay. Are you all clear on that? Now, I don't know whether we can go into details. I will tell you that all three limit the use to medical purposes. And they require physicians to issue ID cards to people who are deemed in need of these services. And they do mention specific illnesses that will be considered part of the qualifying conditions. And they're cancer, epilepsy, glaucoma, migraines, Parkinson's, PTSD, psychiatric disorders, immunodeficiencies, chronic conditions, and terminal illness. All right? And all three of them, are very specific in what they're going to be used for. They do have the ability for doctors to apply for others. Okay? Have a patient that the doctor feels also needs it, then that provision's made. Now I can go through in great detail, if you want me to, of the differences between the three, okay, on what they do. I will tell you that in 2, and not in 3 and C, but in 2, if you have an ID card and you've got a prescription, you will be allowed to grow in your home 6 marijuana plants. I will tell you that. Okay. In 3, okay, this research board that Bradshaw will select will designate growers, distributors, and doctors all in one treatment center. Okay? If 3 passes, it has a big tax and it goes all to the research treatment. All of it. And administration of 3. Okay? A little caveat in there. If indeed this research, and it specifically mentions cancers, cures for cancer, should this research institute discover a cure for cancer, they get 50% of it. And 50% will go to the General Assembly. All right? So the only way the state of Missouri is going to get any money out of this, all right, is if they discover the cure for cancer. And as I mentioned before, these commissioners will make the same amount of money as not a circuit court justice, but the state Supreme Court Chief Justice. So it's a lucrative proposition for those on that commission. And this guy's in for life. He can't be removed. Yeah.
It's interesting that you would use, Chris again, it's interesting that you would use a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Missouri as the dollar figure that you did, because have you heard former Chief Justice Wolf's stance on these 3 pieces of voter initiatives?
No.
He has come out openly in favor of Amendment 2 and against C and against 3.
Well, the only thing of it is it sets salary in 3.
I was just taking opportunity to segue, sir.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm down from this plain Missouri talk. It's getting late, and we all got kids. But what I do want to tell you is this. I'm a veteran with PTSD. I served our country honorably, and I'm standing up here in Maryville asking you all, if you're going to vote no on all of them, vote no on all of them. But if you're going to consider voting yes on any one of them, as a veteran, I'm begging you, pick 2. Because the proceeds of Amendment 2, after it pays for its own self, go directly to the Missouri Veterans Commission.
All right, you're right. Two
So-
goes to, not,
We could use $11 million.
but it goes to healthcare and to the vets and the regulation.
Absolutely.
And it's a 4% tax.
That's
The
correct.
2% tax on C will go to drug treatment, early childhood, and public safety.
Outstanding.
All right?
Except if you look at the money for C, it says that it will cost 10 million and it will bring in 10 million. There is no money to anybody else.
Well, you know, you got, that's the lowest tax. And it's a sales, it's
also
tax on
used-
product, and you don't know whether it'll be more or less, yes.
I think it also needs to be noted when you sit and talk about these 6 plants, that on Amendment 2, it's worded that these plants have to be under lock and key.
Yeah, it cannot be out in the open. It must be in your home.
Just so everyone's aware of.
Yep, that's true. That's true. The other two amendments, you know, you cannot have your own plants. All right? And on Proposition C, you know, it's, you know, they got all kinds of requirements on it, okay? On where it can be used and when and where.
Is there any limit if you have a card on how much you can buy?
Absolutely.
Yes, good question. That exactly, there is a limit. Let's see if I can find this stuff. I've got this thing.
Give me a card. Not me.
All right, possession limits. All right. You can buy on 2, you can buy 4 ounces in a 30-day period.
I wouldn't get rid of a headache.
And in Amendment 3, 3 ounces. And in Proposition C, 2.5 ounces.
Well, if you got a headache and a splinter, you're covered.
And the other limits are, under 2, you can have a 60-day supply, no specification on 3, and a 60-day supply on Proposition C, too.
60-day supply, is that you write down your use and then, give me a card.
Yes.
You know, we're going on all this about, we're not taking into consideration the person got cancer. I got cancer. If I can take something that's not gonna kill me, instead of getting shot up every month with synthetic hormones, and it can help me, I'm all for that. You know, I'll give up some of my rights just to do that.
Yep. I know there's a lot of people out there that are backing medical marijuana that have seen the benefits of it in their families and themselves. That's backing, yes.
Who's gonna watch this? I mean.
Okay, that's a good question, and I will tell you who's going to watch it in all 3. Okay? Amendment 2 is give the existing Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services is going to regulate. And there are a lot of requirements. Okay? They license the growing, they license the distribution, and they license the doctors and the users have, and the patients have to have an ID card. That's in the amendment.
Can that be altered or can it?
Well,
ID card?
just like your driver's license can be. We're talking about enforcement problems.
Now
You
we're
know.
talking about forgery.
Yeah.
You know,
And-
something, you're a criminal anyway.
And the same is true with Proposition C, except that they mention the Division of Alcohol and Tobacco Control as a specific part of health and senior services will be controlling it. I might say that C has a lot more regulation than 2 does. Okay? Okay. Any other questions that are burning?
Well, it just seems to me like that if this was really an initiative that was gonna do people good, it could be way better than this, whatever this is.
Well, I don't know. You want to speak to that?
Yes, sir, I would love to.
I mean, you know, you're here, so.
You gotta start somewhere. And former Supreme Court Justice, Chief Supreme Court justice says this Amendment 2 is the single best piece of legislation he's seen nationwide, and Missouri would be the 31st state. So if your former Supreme Court justice says this is the right first step for Missouri, then I'm not an amendment lawyer, but he is, and he says it's a dang good one. It's definitely better than the other options on the board in his mind. And as such, I'm going to go ahead and put my trust in the people that I've already put my trust in. The good senator says, heck no on 3. Just say 30 seconds worth of stuff because he wants this medicine. Now look, we're all plain Missouri people and we're plain speaking people. If you're a no, you're a no. But this topic, statewide, is currently polling at 72% and it only needs 50 to pass. So we can all put our foot in the mud and say like the Central Missouri State Mule that I am, not on my vote. Right? But at the end of the day, it's coming.
You bring up a good point.
Yes, sir.
I think that if you're in favor of it, it behooves you to vote for one.
Yes, sir.
Whether it's 2, 3, or Prop C. Okay? Because that one vote will make sure that
somebody's going to win. It might as well be the one that people are coming out in favor of.
Yep.
But the problem is that good one is watered down by the others now.
No, the others won't take place.
I mean, as far as the public voting rights. You know, it's just a mass confusion now on the.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
That's why, and that's an excellent point. The waters are getting muddy here, right? That's why I'm standing here on the back row, trying to speak a little sense.
Well, you're here informing us, and who are here now understand this.
And I'd ask you, just like the Bible said, I'd ask you to be disciples and share it with the people that you know.
But we're a small part of the voting public, and
right.
I'm talking about the ballot itself.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but you bring up an interesting point. I mean, it took me 8 hours. It did, and I'm trained to read these things. It took me 8 hours to get through that list of things. I'm glad I did it. Before I read anything on it, I went through and read the fine print. So then when I began to read, I said, oh yeah, that's there and that's there. Yes, you have a question?
Well, I wanted to speak to him. So what Amendment 2 had huge grassroots efforts. 136,000 of those were volunteer-led signatures. Now, Amendment 3, zero volunteers, zero grassroots. Amendment C, or Prop C, zero grassroots, zero volunteers. So word of mouth, all 4 of us that are here.
Perfect's going to pass.
And like I say, the people here now have been educated on it, but most of the people that are voting aren't. That's going to be the problem. So this good amendment getting attacked by the other two.
Well, I agree with you. It's a mess. I wish there were just one, but there's 3, so
and so
we deal with it.
Justice Wolf.
What?
With this all being brought out.
Lily wants to go home. What'd you say? What'd you say?
What's your